It is 6 o'clock. The agenda for the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Clarksburg to be held Thursday, June 1st, 2023 at the Clarksburg Municipal Building, Council Chambers, 222 West Main Street, Clarksburg, West Virginia, at 6 p.m.
Will Hyman.
I'm here.
Gary Keith.
Here.
Jim Malfajow.
Here.
Jerry Ripple.
Here.
Wayne Worth.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jenkins.
Here.
Mayor Marino.
Here.
We have our prayer and pledge this evening by Councilmember Worthington.
Father, we come to you, ask for your guidance, for your support as we try to be good leaders. Ask you to look over our city, council, citizens, and everybody in our area. And in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes of the regular session of May 4th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it.
Petitions, communications, and public hearings. Ethan Flanagan wishes to address council concerning the trail development and an increase in economy.
And I potentially move to closer to the end. I'm waiting to hear a few more people speak before.
Okay. Jeff Thompson wishes to address council concerning the bike trails.
I'm here again because you individuals pushed through, these three individuals pushed through to vote on this for the bike trails up on Lowndes Hill. They still have not provided any information based upon how are you going to pay for it once your grant money runs out, i.e. your liability insurance. How are you going to pay for if you run into Civil War stuff that you have to mitigate and take care of? How are you going to do maintenance? Because the YMCA can't do it. They can barely take care of their building. I was flat out lied to last time. Yes, I was,
No, sir, you
Councilman
weren't.
Keith.
Okay.
Yes,
This
it was.
is years from happening.
Okay,
Years.
Gary, let's go. Let him. He has the floor here.
Okay? I was flat out told one thing, and now I'm seeing another. You guys have not done a study. You have not figured out how you're going to pay for these items beyond your grant. You're wasting our taxpayer dollars on something you want your name on a plaque so that you can say, I did this for the city of Clarksburg, and it's a waste of money. We got too many problems in this city for you guys to sit there and waste money like this. We got to pay for our sewer lines to get repaired. We got to pave these streets. That's part of the problem why people won't move their business downtown. Who in the heck wants to drive on streets like this? Okay? I'm tired of it. It's the same thing as the Robinson Grand. Everybody promised this, that, and the other. Well, guess what? The taxpayers are paying a lot of money for something that isn't even paying for itself. Okay? You're sitting here trying to do something. I'm fine with adding things, but you are putting the cart before the horse. Take care of your infrastructure prior to starting doing stuff that is a pipe dream. And Councilman Keith, you say this is years away.
It is years away.
It doesn't matter. It should not be voted on until you have your ducks in a row and
I don't
you
think you
dictate.
understand how a grant works.
Okay, listen. He's speaking, Gary.
He addressed me, and we always respect
No, we're
questions.
not. We're not.
Okay, well, that's fine.
We're
You
not.
can't really stop me unless you hit me with the gavel, so.
I will.
I feel that we've got other problems in the city that need to be addressed that are more important, and you keep going after these pie in the sky stuff. If you take care of what needs to be taken care of on a basis within the city, I'm all for this stuff. My recommendation is to you, gentlemen and ladies on this council, is to table these items.
That's not how a grant works.
Gary, I'm not gonna tell you again, man, you're out of order. He's
Table these
speaking. He's got
items.
5 minutes. At the end, you could speak, Gary. Hold your comments.
Table these items and put them over to the parks. That's who should be doing this, not the council. They're the ones that are going to end up having to take care of this, not the YMCA. They're the ones got all the equipment to handle it. But you guys want to push this through and doing it. Why don't you push it over to them and say, hey, this is a good idea, put it through and let them go get the grant and let them worry about how they're going to pay for items. And then you guys do what your job's supposed to do, and that is take care of the city and start bringing businesses downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Dan Ferris, 235 East Main Street, wishes to address council concerning 239 East Main Street update.
That would be concerning 239 East Main Street. Good evening, council. I was here on February the 16th, as you'll remember, okay? And on February the 20th, Mr. Police gave me a call and we had a discussion regarding Mr. Howe's property and the conditions in. On March the 2nd, I received another phone call that he was meeting with Mr. Howe, and Mr. Howe had agreed that he would buy a building permit, that he would get a contractor, and that he would start work. The only problem is he's never done that. It's been past the 30 days. So, as we look at the situation, nothing has changed, except one thing. When you all took your oath of office, you swore to uphold the ordinances, any of the regulations within this city, and I dare say, with what's with code enforcement. So Mr. Howe's failure now has put you in a very precarious situation. And you know why? Because you all swore to uphold these. He's now in violation. And so I'm asking council, let me ask you, has anyone referred this case to you yet? I want the council to refer this case to the city attorney. And if you're going to uphold our ordinances, you better use your legal counsel to do so. You are now in violation of not upholding what you swore you were going to do. And I will hold each one of you collectively to that. And my counsel tells me I've got a pretty good case. Now, I can sue Mr. Howe, but I'll tell you what, that's not going to solve anything. If I have to sue council, I'll ask for a class action suit against you. I may not win, but the public is going to have the opportunity to see everything, and I'll win in the court of public opinion. Now, that's not a threat. That's a reality. Mr. Keefe, I believe it was, you made a statement about in your lifetime that house will never be torn down, correct?
That's my personal opinion.
You posted that on the city's website.
That's,
Okay?
I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to talk, but yeah.
But I would tell you, as a member of council, that's inappropriate. You may not realize it, but you're showing partisanship to Mr. Howe. I also read about some comments were made regarding Mrs. Junkins. What do you people want to do out here in public and tear each other down? Do it in private. You don't have to do it out in public. I've known Lily since she's 5 years old. She doesn't need to have somebody badmouth her, which really makes me upset. But what council likes to do is just fight among themselves and then never anything gets done. But I'll tell you what, now this issue, I'm going to force it. People in this room, if you want to join a class action suit against council, if this doesn't get remanded over to their council and taken care of for their failure to act on what they swore they were going to do, I welcome you to that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Jack Keeley, 316 Buchanan Avenue, wishes to address council.
Gary Keith, don't interrupt me. I knew your father and your grandfather sure would. So
My grandfather's boss and one of his best friends. I would never do that, sir.
I'm here because I've got a neighbor who's built a wall across the street from me, right on the curb line. And I know he's off his property line, and I want the city to address it because being on the curb line like that doesn't allow anybody who might be in the street to get out of the street if a car was coming. And that kind of liability will pass because I'm putting you on notice now, Mr. Marsh, you tell them this, that if someone were to get hurt because they couldn't get out of the street on the city's right of way, which it is a city right of way, not state highway, because that wall's in there, you'll be liable along with my neighbor who's built the wall. So I just want to not get into other details, but that wall is right on the curb line and intrudes so much on the street that traffic has to stop and let other traffic get by because of the parked cars and because the wall is so intrusive on the street. And I suggest you get a survey, put the marks in, put the wall behind the marks on his property because and I'm a civil engineer and a surveyor, and I know that he's 2 to 5 feet over his property line. And I suggest you get that corrected and get the wall off the city's right of way, allowing enough room to step out of the street and put it on his property, which I have no objection to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keith.
Tommy Lopez, Spring Avenue.
Well, the last meeting I was here, and the meeting before that, and for the last 2 years, I've been coming here asking for the city to do what's right regarding the project on Spring Avenue and Buchanan Avenue. After 2 years, lots of truth has come out, particularly through recently acquired FOIA documents. City doesn't respond. Okay, we've been here for the last 2 months. You guys are supposed to be having a public forum so we can address this and talk about it. Every week, come here and ask. Every week, no answers. Every week, no response. Every week, no nothing. City manager never reads nothing about the project in his manager's report. Okay, we've got DEP officials who have been in contact again with this week. Okay, just non-responsive. Okay, so that everybody knows this level of stupidity that this revolves around. You guys asphalted over top of the drains. That's how ridiculous that this is. 2 years. The drains, the water runs past it. A 5-year-old could look at it and say it's wrong. You guys refuse to put together the appropriate stormwater advisory committee. You're in violation of your MS4 agreement. Councilman Hyman, you said there's probably not a possibility there will ever be a committee put together because of the complexities of it. I'm not chatting, it's just the truth. I mean, it is what it is.
Exactly what I said.
And so we as citizens, that committee is the conduit that we are supposed to be having the communication with you guys through regarding this particular issue. So how ironic is it that you guys refuse to hear citizen complaints, you suppress information, you literally abuse people, me included. Do you think I like being here doing this? Again, you blacktopped over the drains. You said Tommy Lopez is never satisfied. The last meeting, would you be satisfied if someone blacktopped over top of your drains? That's how ridiculous that this is. So no, I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied that there was blacktop put where your own code doesn't allow for it. It's supposed to be concrete. So no, I'm not satisfied. I'm not, you said it, I'm not satisfied with a lot of stuff, nor would anyone be. Okay, as evidence, everyone keeps coming and looking at the city attorney. Everyone that comes up here over and over tonight, same thing. Okay, what are we doing about not having the appropriate committee in place? It's not being mentioned, it's not being talked about. We know we're in violation of MS4. We know that particular violation is suppressing the very residents that are here to speak about the issues, that you continue to not hold a meeting or provide any public forum on, not to mention refuse citizens the ability to come to the other meetings. So what you guys are doing is called conspiracy. It's not right. In addition to that, I'm not satisfied that no one can answer what happens if this amendment fails on the ballot. I asked you each last week to address in your closing comments specifically what happens if the amendment fails. I don't know if I'm for it or against it. I can't even answer. So again, you've had 2 weeks. Nobody up here could answer. You gave very generic answers. We trust the attorney. Well, with specific answers. The citizens want to know tonight before the election. Each of you speak on what specifically happens if the amendment fails. Does that mean we've got to go to circuit court? This election's void? Speak to what you believe and what you've been told, because no one in the whole city is answering the question. Okay, we've already had the illegal election. The Secretary of State sent you guys a letter in September. September, you got the letter from the Secretary of State saying that everything was illegal and there needed to be a new election. September, you guys didn't act on it. Now we as citizens are here with an election coming up and nobody can answer what happens if the amendment fails. Please answer so the citizens know whether they're for it or against it. What specifically happens if the proposed amendment on the ballot fails? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Ethan Flanagan, 159 Flanagan Oaks Drive.
Well, I'm going to speak a little lighthearted. I'm here to talk about bike trails and how hopefully it would help bring more people into the community and potentially fund the city in order to pay for the things that people are complaining about, like infrastructure and sidewalks. Downtown Clarksburg, at least through my generation, is dying. Route 50 goes right through it. I don't pass through this town very often unless I absolutely have to. But I have friends that live in the surrounding suburbs, and the mountain biking community is pretty strong. We obviously stand up and try to do what we think is the right thing. So I'm here to advocate that the mountain bike community, of course, or the cycling community in general, would love to see new trail development. Hopefully that would in turn bring economical development into the area, more taxpayers. You can kind of look at other cities in the United States that have taken this model, ran with it, and made their communities thrive. Bentonville, of course, is the gold star example, but they have funders like no other place in the United States does as well. Asheville is another great place that so many people are driven to for the outdoor scene because people go there to recreate. They come into the town, they buy coffee before they go out, and they hike, they ride horses. It doesn't matter. But everybody goes outside, and then you come back from doing whatever activity you were doing in the woods, and you're hungry. So you stop at the nearest restaurant that might be downtown Clarksburg, and you eat, and you give your money into the city. So that's kind of what I see. I travel, I work in the mountain bike industry, so I go from city to city to city, and I see a lot of this kind of downtown, small town revitalization happening through outdoor recreation. I believe you guys have already been in contact with a few people from the Outdoor Development or Outdoor Economic Development Alliance in Morgantown. Possibly speaking to Dan Pulley about how to get funding for the trails and where, like, the whole reason we have a grant in order. But yeah, that's basically it. I'm for the trails, and I hope you guys can see the development that would come along with it, and hopefully the community revitalization.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Amanda Winston is wishing to assign her time to Mr. Lane. Mr. Lane wishes to address council concerning spending, committee, and speed bumps.
How's everybody this evening? So, looked over some of the agenda items this evening. See it, the bike trails is a big item. And I think we've heard from both sides of the trails. One's opposed it, one's for it. I think both sides make very compelling arguments. I think infrastructure is key for the city. The city's got a large water project that recently was in jeopardy. Fortunately, it should be pushing through. Infrastructure should be key for our city. Improving downtown and economic development should also be key for our city. But as I've seen across many other cities and communities across the state, across the area, economic development comes in all forms, shapes, and sizes. You can see the southern coal fields of West Virginia have a massive economic boom as a result of the Hatfield and McCoy ATV trails. It started off small and it's grown into something large. I can't say that I'm for or against the bike trails. Both sides make a compelling argument. I think it's fair to have a debate over the argument. At the end of the day, council needs to do what they feel is right for the community. Another thing that I've been curious on with the community and some of council's actions is back in 2019, Clarksburg passed an ordinance creating the beautification committee for the city of Clarksburg. Most people know I'm responsible for flowers, banners, several things across the city. They have made substantial improvements. But I'm also curious on what type of oversight they have. Where do they meet? How do they meet? Who's keeping up with all their minutes? Since they was formed in 2019, does the city have a full minute roll of it? Because I wasn't able to obtain full minutes on it. Some of the things I've obtained, I've found a hand sketch drawing on Thrasher letterhead for a park to be built with the nice pavilion, benches, a wind sculpture, things that will look really nice. And in the records, it's slated that this is to be built across from Huntington Bank in the old City Hall lot. It's just a grassy lot right now. In records, what records I could obtain on it, it shows that a lot of the items needed for this has already been purchased by the city. Thousands of dollars has already been spent by the city of Clarksburg buying pavilions, buying benches. $3,500 spent on a wind sculpture. Where is it? Purchases that date back years. Where's the follow through? And to skip back to the bike trails, whether you go for them or you go against them, whatever direction you decide, have some follow through. If you start on something, follow through, see it through. This part, not say I'm for it or against it, but at some point the decision is ultimately made, we're going to do it. And we're going to start buying things for it. And purchases was made. Where are the purchases? Where are the items? Where's the follow through? Mr. Lopez made comments about the Stormwater Committee. And if I recall right, I'll be vague on this, I believe Mr. Hyman, you said at a previous meeting that sanitary board said it's a complex process. There's a lot involved with it. And that's where it derived of not sure if the committee could be formed because there's a lot of moving pieces with it. And in my time experience with DEP permits, yeah, it can be big. It can be daunting. There's a lot to do with that. But the one thing I noticed on the ordinance with the beautification committee is it states right here, pursuant to the powers set forth in Article 115, Section 115.15 of the codified ordinances of the city of Clarksburg, council hereby creates beautification committee. There's a code, council ordinance, a council code, allowing you to create committees. So to simply create the stormwater committee, who I've been told by neighbors of mine, they've offered to the city to volunteer on this committee. I don't understand the level of complexity or difficulty to simply create a committee that city ordinance allows you to create. I could see if once a committee is created, if there's no participants, if there's no volunteers for it, it could be difficult to continue the committee. But at least give the citizens an opportunity to participate in a committee that the city outlined in a permit they filed with the DEP, their MS4 permit, that the city outlined they would create. An ordinance allows this council to create the committee. I would suggest creating it. I've also got concerns with the speed bump on Buchanan Avenue. To my knowledge, it's the only speed bump in the city. And if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. But I've seen other citizens come before this council talking about grandchildren being hit by vehicles, talking about people running stop signs, talking about people speeding on their streets. I've seen, not necessarily members of this council, but city employees promise speed studies to be done on those streets. Now, I've FOIA'd information on the speed bump. Curious at how it gets formed. How does the city decide whether a speed bump is warranted? And in section 305.01 of the police department, section B, traffic control devices, it says the traffic department heretofore established shall be continued. The traffic department shall place, erect, install, provide, maintain, keep, and repair such markings, signs, signals, lights, and other traffic control devices as council, clear order, council may deem necessary to provide control within the city in conformity with the manual on uniform traffic control devices. It says here, the traffic department shall place, erect, install traffic control devices as council may deem necessary. Now, I've been unable to find any vote or even an agenda item where council voted to have a speed bump placed on Buchanan Avenue, or where they instructed the traffic department. I have got information here. The traffic department consists of a Kenny Smith, a Michael Eakley, Samuel Lopez, and a John Morey. That's the traffic department. I can't find or not aware of anything where those individuals has recommended to council that this be put in. I have been provided with letters that the police chief determines if a speed study is warranted, and it's up to him to conduct the study. I have been provided with copies of the study that was done on Buchanan Avenue. It shows that the average speed is 3 miles over the speed limit. However, the speed limit on this study is 15 miles an hour. And each officer I've spoken to says the legal speed limit on Buchanan Avenue is 25 miles an hour. It's posted 15, but legally it's 25. So I'm curious of why a speed study was manipulated to show favorable treatment toward the speed bump. With that in mind, the fastest speed was 36 miles an hour, 11 over. I live on Buchanan. I've got small children. I like the speed bump. It does help slow people down. People was going fast. But what bothers me is when I see other people come up here with the same concerns that we have on Buchanan, and when I FOIA'd for a copy of a speed study done on any other street in the city than Buchanan Avenue, not a single other speed study could be provided. Not one. So I'm curious as why Buchanan's the only street in the city that warrants a speed study and warrants a speed bump. I'm curious why the city could not follow proper procedure with placing what was placed. Don't have much time left. Had another concern, but I was asked to go ahead, carry out a task. Mr. Police City Manager, you're hereby served for a City of Clarksburg lawsuit. Mr. Mayor, yourself individually are hereby served. And Ms. Vice Mayor, you are hereby served as well.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Appreciate you coming.
City managers report and
From the Economic Development Office. Economic Development staff is pleased to report that the Harrison County Economic Development Grant was approved for funding of $500,000. Engineering and Development Services will provide for site assessment at the Waldo Hotel, Parsons Hotel, and other large industrial and distressed sites in the city. Staff will be attending the Mountaineer Country Tourism Summit and the Glen Elk Community Meeting next week. From the Police Department. The Police Department responded to 2,346 calls for service in the month of May. The Police Department will be conducting physical fitness testing for applicants on June 3rd, June 10th, and June 17th at 9 a.m. at RCB High School. From the City Parks. Splash Zone opened for the season on Saturday, May 27th. The weather encouraged good attendance throughout the holiday weekend. Staff will meet with Thrasher to develop a bid package for the pickleball courts. 38 special Tracy Lawrence tickets are on sale now and are at $1,339 and $1,135 respectively. Crowder tickets went on sale on May 12th and are at 1,182 tickets sold. Friends of the Clarksburg Parks Foundation have ordered the memorials for the Veterans Park Memorial and are awaiting delivery. In the wastewater treatment plant, the thickener is still in process of being rebuilt. Raw sewage pump number 1 is still out for repairs. And they want to remind the public to please not put baby wipes and flushable wipes down the drains. They do not dissolve and are not flushable. From the fire department responded to 302 calls for service during the month of May. Testing for the rank of lieutenant took place on Wednesday, May 31st, and the results will be officially posted on June the 9th. From the Robinson Grand Performing Arts, dance recital season is now in full force with Performing Arts Dance, Ingra and Dance Company, and Fifth Street Dance all scheduled for June. UTC nursing graduation is scheduled for June 15th and law enforcement training for June the 12th. Warriors of the Rock Concert, 16th birthday party, Mountain Craft Film Festival tour, and shoot, and Shrek movie round out the events for the month. From Code Enforcement issued 44 building permits for a total job cost of $422,282.34. 17 citations were ordered, 2 condemnation orders, 5 reboards, 12 inspections, 60 animal control calls, 38 C-click fix complaints, 11 vehicles tagged, 80 NOVs, and 62 new work orders were sent. 81 work orders completed. Crumbly Cookie's final inspection has been completed. The Public Works Department. Renewed yellow paint in the downtown Staley and Northview areas are in progress. The compost truck picked up 24,000 pounds of yard waste, and the compost site received 72,000 pounds of yard waste. Boarded up 2 new structures, 30 cut grass NOVs, and 4 trash NOVs. Plantings and installed baskets for flowers around town and watered daily. From the Finance Department, collections for the month of May. B&O tax, $1,161,119.21. Municipal license fees, $13,329. Contractors fees, $5,280. Alcohol license fees, $2,055. Hotel tax, $22,917. Police citations, $7,916. Building permits, $25,748. Compost fees, $2,331. Payment agreements, $2,293. Grass removal, $400. Vacant property registration, $900. Fire service fees, $59,048. Fire service fee liens, $2,273. Accident reports, $1,735. And demolitions fees of $4,103. Posting for police records clerk ended May 31st with over 200 applicants received. 3 volunteers from the city will be participating in the United Way Day of Action on June 16th. That concludes my report.
Unfinished business, consideration of second and final reading and public hearing of an ordinance of the city of Clarksburg to set salary for city manager and enter into an agreement with the same. Notices regarding the public hearing appeared in the Exponent Telegram on May 23 and May 30th.
I will now open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance may do so at this time. No one wishing to speak. I'll close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it.
Consideration of second and final reading and public hearing of an ordinance of the city of Clarksburg to add section 1712.08, the 07 was a typo, to specify penalties for certain violations of the property maintenance standards. Notices appeared as previously stated.
I will open this public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance may do so at this time.
Just a question. When you say a violation of city maintenance standards, could you define that for me?
So the city's, there's the property maintenance standards are set forth in a separate document outside the ordinances, because the ordinances refer to it. The property maintenance standards are on the website, they're in a separate section. So those are things that deal with, grass is one of the big ones that code has right now. Abandoned cars, those sort of things are in there. So all this ordinance is doing is setting forth a specific fine for those violations that occur. Is what it's doing.
Let me answer another question. When you find someone a violation of that and you fine them, correct? How many of those fines can be collected?
Oftentimes, the fines don't get collected until after the property is sold. So when they lien against the property is generally what's done.
Okay.
It's not, when you're talking, it's not generally cost effective. Code or finance group will file lawsuits after it gets up to a certain amount of money. I don't know generally what the rule is, but, and obviously some people will sell those as well. But the biggest way, I think, a lot of them get paid is you just place a lien, and that lien's good for 10 years. So if they sell that property in 10 years, they're going to have to pay the lien off.
So in essence, until that property is sold, the city is left holding the bill.
Not necessarily.
Okay, well, what about someone that has their grass cut for 5, 6 years and you bill them, do you ever collect from them?
Yeah, we collect at times.
And if you can't collect, can you sue them?
Yeah, that's code, or not, I keep saying code. Finance will at times go and file cases in magistrate court.
I mean, I'm not advocating suing here necessarily everything, but rumor has it out there that there's so many violations that would take up so much of your time that you don't have time to pursue.
It's not me. Finance can take care of it themselves, and we also have a debt collection company that we send it to, that will work as well. For these, you're talking about a few $100s at times. So that time we go to the debt collection company at times finance will file a lawsuit, and if it gets up to be enough, then I will get involved. But finance, the city itself can represent itself in national court for those ones that are.
I guess my bottom line is, are we showing a black or showing at the revenue hearing?
I don't think it's a problem. I don't think it's a matter of, you can't ever think about this as, are you making money off of it? You still have to do something to try to
I'm asking our collector.
I don't know. I can't answer that question
Wow.
because I'm not the finance director.
Can you refer that to the finance director?
Yeah. But, I mean, generally, we receive money from fines.
Right, we do collect a lot. I don't have the exact numbers, but I could report on that.
And the cost is limited to it. I'm not sure what you're saying about making money off of it. generally speaking, code and public works department don't want to go out and cut that grass. That's not their role.
Correct. But if they're going out and doing that, it's our taxpayers that are paying the city employees to do that. If you're having to wait 5 to 6 to 7 years until the project is sold, then it appears to me that there's going to be a big deficit within the finance department.
I don't believe that's true.
Well,
And also-
so you're not the finance department.
I can do a report to tell you how much.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against this ordinance? I will now close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it.
Consideration of second final reading and public hearing of an ordinance establishing salaries or compensation for municipal officers and employees for fiscal year 2023, 2024, and repealing all inconsistent ordinances. Notices once again appeared as previously stated.
I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance may do so at this time. No one wishing to, I will close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it.
New business, consideration of first reading of an ordinance of the city of Clarksburg to add section 115.17 to specify meeting location for council and committees.
Second.
Been moved and second. Discussion. Will, can you kind of explain this a little bit so the public can know? what this is?
Absolutely. I think in the spirit of transparency and being an open council and an open forum for our citizens to participate with what happens here at City Hall, I have ordered the city attorney to draft an ordinance that will require all city committees and commissions and the city council itself to meet here in council chambers and live stream when possible. That also includes city council, which would, instead of having our back room conference meeting, we would have it here and it would be live streamed so we could discuss our agenda, discuss the city manager's report if needed, and then we would gavel in straight to business. That is the intention of the ordinance at hand.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll take a,
Just real quick on this too. I mean, I do think this is important too. I really support Will for doing this. Ryan Kennedy actually tried to do this at 1.2 and we didn't pass anything. We just tried to do it and it didn't really work out. Nobody liked it. But I think forcing it and doing it this way is the right way. For example, the argument that we just had, Mr. Whitmore stood back there in the back room and explained for 20 minutes the process here of how this would work. And I'm probably going to be calling on you to say some of that again. I apologize for that, John, but this is a perfect example. It would have alleviated that.
And I have some further discussion on that too. I believe if we have any questions about any of these agenda items, we should just ask them after there's a motion and a second. Ask our city manager, refer those to staff to get answers from them. That way the whole public could even see what kind of questions that we have. I just think it's just really redundant just to ask these questions in the back room, at a conference session. Then we could be doing it here when there's more of a public audience. That's all I have to say. So I support the ordinance.
yeah, absolutely. Since we got on here, transparency's been our number one goal. And I'm glad this is moving forward. Been waiting on it for some time. We just haven't been able to get it. But I appreciate this being on for consideration, and I definitely support it because no one wants to support transparency more than myself. So we can move on. I'll entertain a motion.
There we go.
Oh, we got a motion in a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it.
Consideration of a resolution to approve budget revision number 2 to the coal severance budget for fiscal year 2022-2023.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it.
Consideration of the approval of $450,000 of the ARPA funds for the Milford Area Upgrades Project.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Discussion. If we could, John, this is a project involving ARPA funds, or Kim, this is a project involving ARPA funds. Can you explain a little bit about this?
So I cannot explain the project, that will be more for the city engineer, I can just explain the funding. Council had approved a bid for the contractor at the last meeting in the amount of $785,175. And then we also are projecting another additional engineering cost in the amount of $60,000 and then contingency funds in the amount of $63,000. So we have proceeds from the county's ARPA funds. They gave us $300,000 towards this project. And then the sanitary board's R&R fund has $158,000. So the remaining $450 is what we're planning for the ARPA funds.
Okay, thank you, Kim. And this project area is over on Milford Street. If I understand, it's going underneath a building at this point in time, and it has to be rerouted to accomplish this project. Okay. The first and second, all in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it.
Consideration to appropriate up to $350,000 of ARPA funds for engineering repair costs for a slip on Brown Street.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it.
Consideration of adding $20,000 to the grant facade program for fiscal year 2023-2024.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. I thought on this, we were going to table
I
it.
think
and-
that's the next step, right? I mean, if that's what you'd like to do, that's,
Okay.
someone can motion to table, I mean, that's.
Okay,
that's
we
how
got
it
a
works.
motion and a second.
I mean, from the discussion that I heard in the back room, it sounded like we were hoping to table it because it would be added to the next year's fiscal budget, which begins July 1, if I'm correct. Kim, is that correct? And so it sounded like it was kind of redundant in those regards to add it. So I'll go ahead and I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
No, I mean, if somebody supports a motion to table, I'll be okay with that too. I think it's doable. I'm not quite sure. So.
Okay. Gary.
Mr. Mayor, since we're just starting this fiscal year, I make a motion to table this and reconsider it in that budget revision.
Okay, we got a motion to table it. We got a second. We got a second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? It'll be tabled.
Consideration of scheduling a time for the Monday, June 12th, 2023 canvass.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we schedule a time for the election canvass on Monday, June 12th, 2023. Is there a time we have to specify, Ms. Clerk?
Yes, please.
What
was it, 1?
1 o'clock? I'm sorry, at 1 o'clock. Yep.
Second.
We got a motion and a second for the canvassing to be on June 12th at 1 o'clock. Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it.
Consideration to accept the West Virginia Department of Transportation and Recreation Trails Program, Lowndes Park Trail System, and Bike Park Grant in the amount of $215,000 with a 20% match in the amount of $53,750 for a total project cost of $268,750.
So,
Been moved?
Second.
Been moved in second. Discussion?
So the wording of this is horrible, but it's how it's requested by the grant. So this is nothing against our staff. It caused confusion for us. This is just us reapplying as we did last year. This is not us accepting the money. We did not get the money. This is just starting the grant process over again. This isn't us accepting it. So Mr. Thompson, I understand your frustration, and we talked last meeting, and you had several questions, and I suggested you reach out to our grant writer, and we had an application and a lot more information. I understand why you'd be frustrated. You think that we're moving forward on that, but this is just the start of that. That information is still available with the grant writer. Our economic development team, and they can really lay this project out more in greater detail. We discussed it earlier in the back room. So there's a lot of, all the questions you have, our economic development team can answer that. I will allow them to do that. I refer you to them. So that's all I can really say. And I appreciate everybody coming to speak to this. As somebody mentioned earlier, this is $53,000 as a match, and what it will do for our economy. Our comprehensive plan, which we do to give us direction, is telling us this is what we should be doing. Every city around us, our entire state, is focusing on this. So it's not a surprise that a comprehensive plan is telling us, take advantage of what you have. Your natural, your Lowndes Hill is a beautiful area. I think it'd be a unique trail. I'm excited for it. It's taking a long time to even get to this point. I was very disappointed we didn't get approved it last year. But everybody around us is telling us, from the state level on down, this is what we should be doing. Research. This isn't just my crazy idea, and I have a bunch of them, I will agree. And it will start with an engineering report. Engineering report says the hill is not suitable. I wouldn't suggest personally for us to still move forward with it. That would be reckless. So that is where it starts. That's where we're at. And, so I hope everybody we need to do better actually as a city is kind of getting this information out to to the citizens. Like the grant process, the grant application, all the information on that, maybe it's something we can do. But yeah, that's all I got to say to that.
Any other discussion?
Can we put John on the spot 1 second? Not go through the whole thing you did in the back, but maybe give us an idea why this ended up on this agenda, and I don't know, maybe best case scenario when you think these trails can be built.
But it was leaving.
To start with the latter one first, it's going to be a while if we utilize these funds. It could take up to 4 years to get funding, but this is, when we talk about the infrastructure bill, when you think of federal funding, this is how we pay for sidewalks and the trails. The RTP program in particular provides for recreational trails and also for those multimodal trails. The TA program, that is, I keep going back to when it was still called Safe Routes to School. It's generally going to be more of a sidewalk-based program. The resolutions before you tonight allow for us to include these with the packet, the application packet that we provide to the Division of Highways. It provides a better score. This is in the comp plan, as it has been discussed. It's one of the 4 main focus areas. And with regards to the first one being the RTP project associated with Lowndes Hill, this is something that we were discussing when we were doing the initial ARPA planning back in 2021. This project came from those discussions. We applied for it last year. The issue that we received from the funder, the reason this one wasn't funded was just that it was the next one in line. They only funded approximately like $1 million worth of projects, and we would have either been the next one or the one right after that. They strongly suggested that we reapply for this specific RTP request. I can go over the other ones as well right now, but in general, the project, providing this 80-20 match, that's really going to be the best grant that we're able to get for these types of programs. Otherwise, we would be going for federal monies, which they can be a little bit more lucrative, but the end result is a little bit different. In particular, one of the problems we've run into with this application process is we end up with projects that are multi-year, that adds to the length of time. But DOH, DOT, they really want us to have with these TA and RTP projects, I'm using a lot of letters, I apologize, but with these projects, they want them to have the design and build occurring with one engineering firm. So that creates a little bit of the problem, because how can we justify the expenses when we don't have all the information to you? We have to go get the engineers engaged first so we can give you additional information. If there's problems that come up, that's when we have discussions about being out of scope with the original contract. So we will be bringing any modifications that occur. With the inflation that's occurring, it is anticipated that costs will go up. We have to acknowledge that, but I think, as everyone's aware, this is a project that There's clearly a benefit to it. There's clearly a want for it in the community. How can we pay for it? That's what we're trying to provide solutions.
Can you tell us a little bit about the engineering process? And I know you discussed a little bit about the feasibility of it and how they would approach if there was any issues that should arise.
Well, so they're going to be reviewing the project for best practices for engineering. Once this project gets going, let's assume that we're funded, we would go through a bid process to determine the actual contractor who would administer the funding and administer the physical construction. They're going to go through a process where they do their site plan work, they're going to do erosion sediment control work, stormwater management work. They should be doing soil sample analysis, but there's going to be justification that they're going to have to be able to provide for the trail design and how it's going to be established. That'll be a process. It'll be something that the city manager's office would be working with. We'd be working with the engineer and conveying information if there's project overruns or anticipated changes. One thing that we have to be cognizant of is we're dealing with a pretty steep slope area, and any changes to that substrata can create some real problems. So we recognize this. The engineer is going to have to recognize this. They're putting their stamp on the line. And when we're going through scoring for these bids, we're going to be having to require certain ANSI standards, so certain scientific foundation standards that are agreed upon to establish that what the product that we'll get is not only acceptable, but it would be pass legal muster if there was a request to, or if someone gets to the point where they would get to lawyers. Apologize, it's really cold in here today.
Thank you, John. I'd like to comment on this too. Roughly a year and a half ago, this project was brought up, and I had all these questions that Mr. Thompson's added, engineering study, soil sample, and luckily we put the brakes on it because none of that was going to be done. No engineering study, no soil samples, no discussion of liability, nobody who's going to maintain it, the park board. None of that was discussed, but we were going to pay $250,000 roughly to a company to come in here and put this bike trail in without any due diligence done. So yeah, wheels of government do go slow, and this is a long project. But when you're spending other people's monies, citizens' monies, you want to make sure you do it right. So it has been a wait, but as long as we have all these things done, that engineering study, the soil sample, that we're going to be okay with the project, rather than rushing in and spending our $250,000, rather than getting a grant and only spending $50,000 or whatever it is. It's a big difference. So sometimes you need to put the brakes on these projects and make sure you follow out on everything you need to before you rush in to do this. I'm comfortable that we'll get all those answers before we move forward with that project, whether it be next May or whenever we get an opportunity to. But all those questions that Mr. Thompson posed, I posed a year and a half ago, and we didn't have any of those answers because we weren't going to do any of those things.
We did, it's not true.
Yeah, but anyway, I think this will be okay to move forward with that. Thank you, guys.
Further discussion on that. Do I think this will be a benefit to the city? Yes, I do. However, I'm going to vote no on this. The reason why I'm going to vote no on this is because what happens if the project cost exceeds the grant amount? Even after our engineer, whoever the engineer goes out there and says, well, guess what? There's a lot of issues on that hill that are going to cost a lot of money to correct. I just don't want to wake up, 4 years from now and see, a $215,000 or $268,000 project turn into a $500,000 project when we do have other issues in our city that we're going to be facing, like infrastructure and other stuff. I don't feel like, and maybe 4 years down the road, this might be the best thing ever happened to Clarksburg, and people could say, I told you so, Wayne. But here's the thing, the bottom line is that in my gut and with the sensitivity of that hill, I I think the cost, in my gut, the costs are going to be a lot higher. They're going to exceed this. And I don't hear a lot of confidence on how we're going to be able to fund those further costs going forward. So that's why I'll probably vote no on it, not because I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's a great idea, but at the end of the day, just on a hill that sensitive, I think you just have to be a little fiscally responsible.
Thank you. And I will comment on that too, because the hillside, the Y has a water line running up through there. They've had it, it's exposed. It's not very deep. It's shut down the Y several times during the course of the winter. It's a very steep slope. I anticipate a lot of problems on there, a lot of ongoing maintenance, and I agree with Wayne on that could be a future big cost for the city. And I kind of agree with Wayne's assessment on this
So
project.
at the end of the day, we will eventually get an engineering report for the hill that we already need a report for. So if the trails don't go forward, we have an updated new engineering report of the Lowndes Hill, which is very important for an engineer to have. So at the end of the day, it could be a win-win.
John also said in the back that if the price went up, correct me if I'm wrong, the DOT would want to give us more money because they want to see the project through.
So yes, that's correct. In other jurisdictions, in instances where there have been cost overruns, especially with projects that have been prolonged over COVID, they will rearrange funding for future out years just to ensure that the project will be completed. They have an interest in finalizing the project. That's one of the problems with their process is you end up with a complete project. So it takes so long, and they have this, I guess, issue that comes up with cost quite frequently. But it's something that we would be working with staff, working with the engineer to keep costs down, but also providing information to you in the event that there were significant discoveries observed by the engineer, and they would come up in a report so we can establish this is what we have to look at in terms of additional cost.
Would that engineering cost be given to the city, or would the grant pay for that engineering stuff?
So it would be, when working with the funder, we would generally have to establish if it's going to be as like a pay-as-you-go type of situation. I believe that's the DOH has a program where we can have it invoiced like that. So that should not be an issue, because there are projects that come up where the engineering says you cannot do it. So at that point, you have to close out that project. So the DOT, DOH, we've been assured they will work with us after award to be able to get the project to a point where it's engineering ready. So once all the funding is in place, it's shovel ready and done.
Any other discussion?
If we're granted the funding and we see that it majorly exceeds what we need, what happens?
So
besides DOT and coming in and maybe giving us support on that, can the money then possibly could we stop the project and say we don't want to move forward, and then the money is returned? How does that occur?
It depends. There are some the funder, DOH in this instance, has some projects that have been in limbo for multiple years. In conversations with those entities, DOH has been amenable to reconfiguring the money into a different type of project. That's not something that they're really looking for at this stage. So we haven't had discussions at that point. Overall, this would be one in a series of projects, because there's going to always be sidewalk needs for the community. So once we get on a rolling scale with these grants, there will probably we'll probably get to a point where either just due to project timelines, where we would have an opportunity to rearrange funding, but we're not at that stage to really begin those in-depth negotiations or discussions with DOH. And speaking with Mark, the projects that they're looking at to get funded, especially now with competitiveness, they're really looking for feasible projects. So I'm confident that they're going to work to complete the project as established in the grant award agreement. And we'll be bringing that to you in the event that we receive an award. As unfortunately discussed earlier, that would probably be most likely in May of next year before we hear anything.
Any other discussion?
Just one final comment I'd like in the official notes of the meeting. If there's ever a plaque or a sign or a flagstone or anything up there, I do not give the city of Clarksburg permission to put my name on it.
We'll put Wayne's on it. We'll put Wayne's on it.
Yeah, I'm voting no for it.
Okay, then, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
No.
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 Will Hyman,
No.
Gary Keith,
Yes.
Jim Alphajo,
Yes.
Jerry Riffle,
Yes.
Wayne Worth,
No.
Vice Mayor Jenkins,
No.
Mayor Marino,
No.
motion passed.
Motion fails.
Consideration of a resolution to accept the West Virginia DOT Transportation Alternatives and Recreation Trails Program, City of Clarksburg Urban Rail Trail Connection Hub Phase 1 grant in the amount of $240,000 with a 20% match and the amount of $60,000 for total project cost of $300,000.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion?
I'd like to add that I hate to be raining on everybody's parade. I know a lot of people came out here and speak in support of it, but I personally believe here that the connector to the Pittsburgh to Parkersburg Trail is vitally important as compared to the mountain bike trails. I agree with Mr. Thompson. I think I spoke in one of the first conference sessions that we had here in council chambers. I'd like to see Lowndes Hill go a different direction. I'd like to see it be more of a history type museum that maybe would bring the trenches back, do something along those regards, because I believe that there's a lot of history up there. I believe that can coexist. I believe that's a possibility. But I believe 150, 60 years of history is more important at the moment than bike trails. I'm sorry to disappoint anybody. But again, going back to the rail trail, I believe that's more important. I think that's going to attract more people who are maybe into road riding instead of extreme sports and mountain biking. So that's just my opinion. You can talk to me after the meeting, I'm sure. So.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I like what Will says. I mean, I'm going to support this because, I think it's a long time overdue. And I believe if there are any hiccups in this project, that it'd be a lot easier to address those hiccups than what it would be if you're trying to build on the side of a hill. And I think this is this connector hub from the North Bend Trail to the West Fork Trail that goes clear up into Fairmont, Morgantown, and eventually Pittsburgh. To be connected to that, I think, I may be wrong, but I think going forward when it comes to maintenance, you're going to have a few more entities also involved in a little bit. You can leverage a few more dollars to do the maintenance on this trail, especially if it's connected with especially if it's a part of a major trail system. So I will support this measure.
Thank you, Jerry.
I agree with Will about the history of it. I love history. I've supported the History Museum. I support all of that. But we have to start that process. We can't just wait for it to happen. The trails, we started that process. If there was a reenactment up there, I'd be the first one up there shooting at people and, certain people, but I love history, and if that's what we're going to do, then we got to do it. We can't just talk about it. We can't just hope that it happens. I'm very disappointed that the trails didn't pass. It passed before, but at least we have to start it. We have to do something.
I would like to comment that the county commission has spent thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars on the rail trails all over Harrison County, and it would only be beneficial to add to that. So I will support this also because that's a project ongoing. That's a bunch of money has been spent throughout the county to make this rail trail system. So I think it would be good for Harrison County and Clarksburg to be involved in that. So I will support it too. With that being said, we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it.
Consideration of a resolution to accept the West Virginia DOT Transportation Alternatives Glen Elk Streetscape and Green Infrastructure Project Phase 1 grant in the amount of $400,000 with a 20% match in the amount of $100,000 for a total project cost of $500,000.
So moved.
Been moved
Second.
and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Will Hyman?
No.
Gary Keith?
No.
Jim Alphajo?
Yes.
Jerry Riffle?
No.
Wayne Worth?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jenkins?
Yes.
Mayor Marino?
Yes. The motion passes.
Council comments?
We'll start down there with, Mr. Councilman Mouthco.
Thank you, sir. Something a little different tonight. I make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Been moved and discussion.
I think we should have council comments. I think it's a little silly. I know, obviously, we got a very contentious election approaching. So I think it's beneficial to let all council and candidates speak. So I'll just say that. I'll be voting no.
Any other comment? No, I agree. I mean, council comments are part of the meeting.
There's no discussion there's no debate on a motion to adjourn.
That's a shame.
So
It's a privileged motion.
a move and a second, and so we have a vote? Is that what we do?
You need a vote.
We'll take a vote.
No.
Will Hyman?
No.
Gary Keith?
Aye.
Jim Alphajo?
Aye.
Jerry Riffle?
Aye.
Wayne Worth?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jenkins?
No.
Mayor Marino?
No.
The motion carries.
The motion carries. Thank you, everybody, for coming out.